Narcan saves lives. Narcan has saved my own life.
Everyone should be carrying Narcan. It reverses an opioid overdose.
It's easy to get. It's almost at any pharmacy. You don't have to be 18, and you don't need a prescription.
It is saving lives every single day.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. As always, I'm excited to be here with you all today and share some of my knowledge with you all, and hopefully this will help you on your journey to becoming financially fit. As you may have heard on our last episode, we've made a bit of a pivot. We focused a lot of time over the past 2 years on personal finance, and what I'm finding is there is a need and a gap for small business owners and startup companies to receive knowledge on what they should be doing from a financial perspective. So, this is my opportunity to really talk to you all. This is something that's near and dear to me, especially having been a founder myself. If you didn't know, I founded a company back in 2020 with two other friends. We launched a tech company out of Minneapolis and then scaled across all 50 states in about 18 months. The company's still running. I'm not an operator in it anymore, but I do still help where I can. Um, but, you know, this is a very crucial time for small businesses and also startups. I think that we're seeing capital becoming a little bit more of a friction point or inflection point, I should say, where a lot of VCs are being a lot more intentional with their capital versus what they were maybe doing in 2020. I think also with the new administration, we're seeing a lot of potential, law changes and regulations that will affect small business owners and startups. So this is really a spot where you can come, you can feel and bring your most authentic self to this conversation, and hopefully you learn something. So today, what we're talking about is bootstrapping like a pro, right? For a lot of startups, uh, you go through this phase where you're trying to figure out, how much of my money do I use? How far will that take me? And when will I need to get institutional capital, if at all, right? And there's always kind of this balance, right? So, today, what I hope is that you can take some of kind of my methodologies with you and it can help you along the way as you are trying to figure out whether or not, like, which approach is best for you, right? So, you know, at the end of the day, the end goal is that we want to grow the business, right? Without taking on unnecessary debt and giving away equity too soon. And there's a fine balance there. One of the best advice I got when I was running Turn Signal was from a consultant of ours. He said, you can keep um, you can keep your equity stake and you can have a large part of nothing, or you can have a small part of something big, right? So I think there's really just trying to figure out that balance of, when does it make sense for me to pivot and maybe start to take on some strategic venture capital funds, right? So why does this matter? You might be asking yourself, in my opinion, bootstrapping forces discipline, creativity, and control. So, but I think the thing that we have to keep in mind, done wrong, it can also stunt your growth. So, I think that, in my opinion, when you have some skin in the game, it causes you to be a little bit more conscious. Now, that was much different than what I did and what we did when we started Turn Signal. We took venture capital money pretty quickly. We raised a couple $1 million right away, and then we raised a few multiple millions of dollars in a later round after that. And what I'll tell you is that Not all VCs are the same. Not all their theses are the same. Not all of their approaches are the same. Some VCs are going to want board oversight, and or maybe they want an actual board seat. Some VCs are going to want pro rata rights, where they have the ability to follow along in the next round should the company continue to be successful. So there's a lot of different ways that VC money can help change control of the company. And in my opinion, the most important thing um, for a founder is trying to keep control of your company, right? We've seen time and time again where maybe you've gone down this path of taking VC money, and now your board is made up of a bunch of VCs, that oftentimes, yeah, they support you. They want to see you be successful. And also they expect a return, right? So when things aren't progressing at the pace that they might want it to progress, or maybe you guys have different views on where the company should be going, sometimes that can lead to the CEO being removed. And most times that CEO is the founder. So it's important for us to be careful with some of those things. But I want to talk to you about why bootstrapping is powerful. Um, in my opinion, bootstrapping equals funding within. And what I mean by that is like you are taking an invested approach into this business other than your time. So not only are you putting your time in, your sweat equity, you're also putting in money. You're putting in capital. And I think that is powerful. And I think that it also makes you view the business through a different lens. I think it makes you focus on where the dollars are actually going because it's your own dollars. I think it makes you focus on trying to get to your first revenue markers as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. So I think those things are very important. So what it does, it helps you keep 100% ownership and control, which we talked about a little bit about why the control aspect is so important. It helps you stay lean, so every dollar gets scrutinized. It helps you build resilience, which, in my opinion, forces smarter decision making, especially as you're trying to scale. I think the reality check is that bootstrapping doesn't mean doing everything for free or never investing. It means being strategic about what, when, and how you spend. And that is so important. So I'm going to read that again. Bootstrapping doesn't mean doing everything for free or never investing. It means being strategic about when and how you spend. That's powerful. And cash flow is king when you're first starting out with your venture. So let's talk about the five bootstrapping strategies. So number one, start small, improve fast. So we want to launch a minimal viable product. They call it MVP. You want to get customer feedback before sinking into full build. So, what I'm saying really here is that, if you are launching a product or a service, you want to get your minimal viable product to the marketplace. You want to get customer feedback to understand like how do the customers view your product? What are some features that they would like to see in your product or service that maybe you don't offer today? Or maybe it's further along down your roadmap. Maybe you need to move that up on your roadmap, right? Ultimately what you're doing is you are beta testing your product or service, because this will allow you to then take that feedback and relook at your roadmap and have a better understanding of what you need to do as you continue to move forward. So another number two is prioritize cash flow over profit early on. And I emphasize the early on because we do want to get to profitability. Anytime we can get to a point where the business can self-sustain itself without having to take capital or having to take on debt or having to infuse more money or capital into it yourself, that is huge. But early on, we want to focus on cash flow over profits. So, um, really, we want to focus on what services can be a fast turnaround, what services or products. And we want to figure out how can we bring in immediate revenue, and how does this revenue fuel our growth later? Those are the questions we should be asking ourselves early on in our venture. And I think that this is the thing that will cause you to continue to keep an eye on cash flow, making sure that we're not spending money just to spend money, but we actually are being intentional about, if I spend $1, how much am I making? If I spend $2, how much am I making? If I spend $100, how much am I making in revenue, right? Those are the things in the unit metrics that are going to drive your company forward. The third one is barter and trade skills. So, um, what I learned in the founder community is that we're a close, tight knitted community, especially here in Minneapolis. And a lot of times we're willing to help one another. And for instance, myself, I'm a CFO, right? So maybe I can lend some financial help to another startup that has a gap in finance, right? But maybe they have a very technical individual on their team that they've built apps. Maybe they have oversaw from a CTO, a chief technology officer perspective, and they can help drive product, right? So maybe I can trade some of my skills to also be able to get some of the skills and the gaps that I have within my company. So I've found that people are more than willing to help. I think that it's a great way to create that community and that ecosystem within the startup environment. The next one is number 4 is get creative with funding. So friends, family investments, set clear terms. The easiest way to lose friends and family is through money. So we want to make sure those terms um, are very clear and concrete, and we want to make sure that they understand the risks that are coming along with their investment, right? Because startup and angel investing is one of the riskiest investments that someone can make. Far more riskier than investing in an IPO stock, right? Um, Customers, we want our customers to fund our growth. So any way that we can do pre-sales or subscriptions or deposits, like those are the things that are going to help drive revenue early on. They're going to allow us to reinvest that money back into growing and scaling the business. There's also a lot of grants and micro grants. Many cities have small business funds. So I know here in Minnesota, we had Minnesota Deed and Launch Minnesota for a while, where they had funds where they would reimburse dollar for dollar up to a certain grant amount for expenses that you have for your company, right? So there's lots of these around the country within various cities, but like get creative with your funding. Find ways to get that non-dilutive funding to be able to keep the equity, be able to keep control. So when it is time to raise equity, you have a very clean cap table. Keep your burn rate lean. So only spend on what directly drives revenue or is absolutely essential. So we want to make sure that every dollar we spend is going to drive revenue. And if it's not going to drive revenue, then we need to figure out how to get rid of it. I would also, if you're a company that's equipment heavy, like let's figure out a way to rent the equipment versus buying the equipment, right? Especially early on. If we can rent and then know exactly the type of equipment that we need and understand the efficiencies of that equipment and how that's driving revenue, then maybe we can go out and purchase the equipment, but we want to make sure that we have proved out our hypothesis early on. Use free and low cost tech tools before upgrading. So, right now, AI is a huge thing. There's tons of AI companies, there's tons of technology um, companies that support founders. And what we want to be conscious of is not trying to put a software in place to fix a problem that we haven't solved quite yet. So we want to make sure that we can stay lean with our softwares and make sure that if we do have a software, what is the ROI on that software? So essentially, every dollar has to pass a test. The question you should be asking yourself is, will this get me closer to the next sale or customer? If the answer is no, then we need to do away with it. If the answer is yes, then we need to dive deeper, right? So one question I want to ask you guys is, what's one expense you can cut or delay this month? I want you to think about that. Where could you trade pre-sell or creatively fund your next step instead of borrowing or executing, a price round or a safe note, right? Um, the action I want you all to take with your business is make a list of your top 3 business expenses and ask, do these directly create revenue? If not, it's time to trim or rethink. So the action step I want you all to take is make a list of the 3 top business expenses you have and ask yourself, do these directly create revenue? If not, it's time to trim and rethink. So I'll leave you with this as we get to the end of our podcast here. Bootstrapping is really about building smarter, not just cheaper. When done right, it gives you freedom and control. So I want you to really think about that freedom and control that you want to have in your company. I want you to understand that this is not about doing things cheaper, it's about doing things smarter. And hopefully, you can take some of this stuff and think about kind of your holistic picture of your business and how you plan to scale and build and grow that business. And, like I said, taking on capital or investments not bad. Taking on debt isn't bad. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It just really depends on what your goals are. But ultimately, I think all founders have one thing that they really, really care about outside of growth and scaling the business, obviously, but that's control. So the more control you can keep, the more that you'll be able to drive the business. So um, thank you so much for tuning in. The next episode, we'll be talking about business credit and banking 101, how to separate your personal and business finances and build real business credit. That's going to be a fun one. I think that oftentimes a lot of startups and small businesses are trying to find ways to get to utilize debt and leverage it to grow their company, but they don't quite understand how do you actually build business credit so you can be a fundable business by a bank. So with that being said, as I always say, it's not about how much money you make. The power is in how much money you keep. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. My name is Andre Creighton. I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Financially Fit Podcast. Take care.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
To keep my home running smooth, I count on Xfinity Internet. With 99.9% reliability, we're all online at once. No slowdowns. The Xfinity app lets me manage our Wi-Fi and keep things secure. Xfinity makes it easy.